Hello everyone and welcome to day 5 of history class. Today we begin theme 2, Kings, Farmers and Towns from our history book, Themes in Indian History Part 1. In our previous classes we had discussed about the Harappan civilization. In this theme we move a millennium away from the Harappan times. This was a time when Rig Veda was being composed. Agriculture settlements emerged. New modes of disposal of dead and making of megaliths or the Stonehenge began in central and southern India. From approximately 6th century BCE, early states, kingdoms, and empires began to emerge. Underlying these political developments, numerous other changes were in process. Organization of agriculture production and emergence of new towns began to emerge in the whole country. To understand these changes, historians began to study a range of sources like inscriptions, text, coins, and visual material. In this regard, epigraphy or the study of inscription was of great help. From 1830, epigraphy was revolutionized by a British officer of the Mint. He was the young man named James Prinsep. He is also credited with deciphering two scripts called the Brahmi and Kharosti, about which you will be studying in the later half of your chapter. While studying the coins and the inscriptions, Prinsep realized that they mention a king and refer to him as Piyadasi, which means pleasant to behold. Some Buddhist texts mention him as the most popular king, while other inscriptions refer to him as Asok. This was a revolutionary method to study ancient history, where inscriptions could now be studied with reference to text and enable better understanding and construction of history. Historians began to use inscriptions and text in order to understand the political history. They could now understand the chronology of major dynasties. Thus, a continuous chain of dynasties could be understood. Now, the historians focused on connections between the political, economic, and the social developments between 600 BCE and 600 CE. From 6th century BCE, major changes began taking place. Iron, which was the strongest metal till date, began to be used in large amounts. Coins began to be minted and used to facilitate trades. New thought processes like Buddhism and Jainism began to develop, and early city-states began to evolve. Buddhist and Jaina texts mention 16 states known as Mahajanpads, derived from the Sanskrit word or Prakrit word Janpad, or a place where people set their foot. Some of the most powerful Mahajanpads were Vaji, Magad, Kuru, Panchal, Koshal, Gandhara, and Avanti. These Mahajanpads were often ruled by Janas or Sanghas, which meant that the power was shared by many men called Rajas. These states were oligarchy and lasted for about 1000 years. Every Mahajanpad was fortified and was protected by armies and bureaucracies administering them. All this required resources. These resources could be collected as taxes from cultivators, traders, and artisans. Raids on the neighboring states was another means of acquiring wealth. It was from 6th century BCE, when Dharamshastras began to be written down by Brahmins, that they laid norms for rulers who were supposed to be Kshatriyas ideally, as well as for other people in the society. Among these Mahajanpads, Magad rose to prominence between the 6th and the 4th century BCE. Historians explain that this development was due to three major factors, that is, a strong army, a strong economy, and a strong political institution. The army owed its strength to the presence of the iron mines located here. These mines provided metal for weapons and tools. The thick forest of the region provided elephants, which further strengthened the character of the army. The factors which affected the economy of Magad was its location in the Ganga basin. This area was very fertile, due to which agriculture was productive. Another factor that strengthened the economy was River Ganga and its tributaries, which facilitated cheap and easy communication and transportation. Some historians believe that political institutions were strong due to the policies and the ambitions of ruthless kings like Bimbisar, Ajatashatru, and Mahapadmananda. Initially, Rajagaha, which is the present day Rajgir in Bihar, was the capital of Magad. Rajagaha literally meant the abode of the king and was located in the hills. But in 4th century BCE, the capital was shifted to Patliputra or modern day Patna, probably to control trade and communication along River Ganga. This growth of Magad culminated in the emergence of Mauryan Empire. Chandragupta Maurya was the founder of the Mauryan Empire, replacing the Nanda dynasty in approximately 321 BCE, and extended his empire up to Afghanistan and Baluchistan. His grandson Ashok conquered Kalinga and brought it under the control of the Mauryan Empire. But after his victory over Kalinga, he completely gave up war and converted to Buddhism. The question which now arises is, how do we know so much about the Mauryan Empire? For this, historians use a variety of sources. These sources can be divided into archaeological and textual. Archaeological sources include coins, sculptures, and the inscriptions, among which Ashoka's Dhamma has been inscribed throughout the empire, are the greatest source of reconstructing the history of the Mauryan Empire. Ashok was the first ruler who used these inscriptions on stones and pillars to instruct his subjects and officials to proclaim what he understood as Dhamma or Dharam. He preached respect towards elders, generosity towards Brahmins and monks, kindness towards servants and slaves, and respect for all religious traditions. Although these inscriptions were preached in the 3rd century BCE, but it seems that they are still the need of the hour. We now look towards the textual evidence. Among the textual evidence, the richest source of information is obtained from Kautilya's Arthashastra. It is believed that some portion of this text were written by Chanakya, who was the minister in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, also known as Kautilya. Chanakya had laid down minute details of the administration and the military organization of the empire. Another textual evidence we turn towards is Indica. It is a book written by Megasthenes, who had been sent as an ambassador from Greece to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. His book helps us to understand the administration of the Mauryan Empire. Beside these two texts, historians also look upon Buddhist, Jaina, Puranic, and Sanskrit literature to gather information in order to have a clear understanding of this great empire. These texts help us to understand the administration of the empire. Mauryan administration was based on the principle of well being of the subjects. The Mauryan administration was highly centralized. Succession to the throne was hereditary. King's powers were unlimited. It was the duty of the king to ensure the safety of his subject and provide them with ample freedom. Looking at the vastness of this empire and understanding that means of communication were not so quick and well developed, historians believe it might have been impossible to have a uniform system of administration. Therefore, for the purpose of administering such a vast and varied empire, the king divided it into five major provinces or political centers, namely Patliputra, Takshila, Ujjain, Suangiri, and Tosali. The governors of the provinces were known as Kumar or Aryaputras. These governors were aided by 30 council members grouped into 6 boards. The administrative centers were chosen with great care in order to control and facilitate long distance trade. It was important to control these lines of communication and provide safe and protected passage to traders and travelers. For this purpose, they used the military. According to Greek sources, Mauryan army comprised of 6 lakh foot soldiers, 30,000 cavalry, and 9,000 elephants. Megasthenes mentions a committee with 6 subcommittees to coordinate the functioning of such a vast army. Among these 6 subcommittees, one looked after the navy, the second managed the transport and provisions, including food for soldiers, fodder for animals, arranging for servants and artisans for soldiers, and arranging for bullock carts to carry all these provisions. The third subcommittee was responsible for the foot soldiers, and the fourth for the horses, the fifth for chariots, the sixth for elephants. Apart from these, the Mauryan Empire devised a unique system of spies who collected information and kept the emperor updated about the events within and outside his empire. In order to keep this vast and varied empire united, Ashoka stressed on propagation of Dhamma. As we had seen, the principles of Dhamma were simple. He believed that these principles would ensure the well-being of his subjects in this as well as next life. To ensure the spread of these principles, he appointed special officers known as Dhamma Mahamatas. Precise management and flawless administration helped the Mauryan Empire to reach the epoch of the early Indian history. At the time when the historians began reconstructing history of early India, Britishers were already ruling us. The discovery of such a great empire both excited and challenged the Indian historians. The spectacular sculptures that were discovered were great examples of unparalleled art. Also, the Ashokan inscriptions portrayed the humility of the emperor, in contrast to the later emperors who claimed high sounding titles for themselves. Therefore, it is not surprising that at a time of national movement, the leaders turned to Ashok for inspirations. Sadly, Mauryan Empire lasted for 150 years and could not expand to the whole of the subcontinent. But the 2nd century BCE, new chiefdoms and kingdoms got an opportunity to emerge in the several parts of the kingdom. With this, we end today's session. We will meet again tomorrow to discuss the new notions of kingship that began to develop. And now, for today's assignment, If we believe that the Greek accounts are true and the Mauryan army was really that vast, you need to write an essay about the kind of resources that would have required to maintain such a large army. So, with this, I will see you tomorrow. Stay home, stay safe.